Welcome to From the Editor with Larry Gordon, where newsmakers unpack the stories shaping the Jewish community.
Okay, hi everyone. Larry Gordon here with Esta Gordon, and you're listening to Between the Lines, the podcast, the fledgling, just about getting to getting up to regular speed, the podcast of the Five Towns Jewish Times. And aside from Esther rejoining us again today, our good friend and longtime columnist, Ron Jager, is on with us. He's been writing for the Five Towns Jewish Times ever since I know you. It's a long time, Ron, right?
Since 2010, 2011. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a lot of years now. There's a lot of things we want to discuss, but as it pertains to you, you are if I remember correctly, without having anything in front of me, you are a longtime member of the IDF. Many years during your youth, you were in the Lebanon War, which I think went from 1982 to 2000, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
I was in the IDF for 25 years as a mental health officer. My final position, I was head of the Central Psychiatric Clinic in Tel Shomer Hospital for soldiers, reserve soldiers. And it was quite a career. It was very, very, very challenging. Being in Lebanon in 1983, 4, 5, I was there for a total of 2 full years in Beirut. So I got to see some things that I can share with you guys.
Okay, so we'd love to hear about that, but that was a great trauma for the state of Israel. That was what they would call today in America a forever war. It just seemed to drag on forever, and it caused a lot of casualties. If I remember correctly, am I correct that about 4,000 young soldiers were killed during those 18 years? Is that a right number?
I'll tell you something. One thing that really typifies Israeli society is the ability to remain resilient and live with situations of war and terror over a course of time. And we I don't want to say we get used to it, but we're able to deal with it without it really ending our daily routines. We go on with our lives despite what's going on around us. So it's one of the things that's enabled Israel and the people of Israel to deal with some kind of situations over so many years. We've had terror or wars, for as long as I can remember, and we're able to overcome.
So now you're a civilian. We had the what they call at least a symbolic end to the Gaza war with the return of the body of Ron Jager the other day and his burial in Israel. So do you see it as a former member of the IDF and someone that dealt with the mental health of the soldiers in the field? Do you see that as a genuine end to those 2+ years of absolute violence and horror?
I think that the majority of the public does treat this event of Ron Jager as a turning point in terms of the Gaza war. We always have Iran in the background, so it's not as if everything's over, but the intensity of the Gaza war is more or less come to an end. And even when you speak to people, you see that most men are home. They're not in miluim or a reserve military service. And we've kind of gotten back to our routine in terms of wartime as opposed to non-wartime. And yes, I think it is a turning point for the majority of Israelis.
So during your time of service and people that had a similar function in the military that you had in the past 2 years, you don't just treat from when we've seen in this age of advanced technological communication, what we've seen is that this is not just a war fought by Israeli soldiers, members of the IDF against an enemy. We saw, I think, for the first time in Israel's history, how it impacts on a family. Was that something that you dealt with back in the 80s and 90s? or is that something new? I mean, it's always there, but is that the reality that Israel deals with? How war impacts on families, not just on the members of the military?
Well, I'm not sure I understood, but everyone in Israel has somebody who's involved in military service in one way or another, either as a son or a daughter or a father or even grandfathers. You have all, multi-generational people serving all the time. And so you're constantly aware in a kind of background that it's there. But we have ups and downs. Most of the time, you don't feel it on a daily level unless you're so hooked to the news that you just listen to things going on elsewhere. But in your own immediate environment, you live a regular normal life. You don't feel it with the same intensity that you do during the peak periods, and we go on with our lives. You have traffic
So
jams, and you have
Ron,
all the regular stuff.
so what
Esther?
really my big question now is, I'm going off the topic. I'm more concerned right now about the new Saudi reaction towards Israel and the Jared Kushner phase two of Gaza. There are things there that are bothering me and bothering a lot of people that feel the same way as I do. I'm not trusting this. I think a lot of it seems a little self-serving, and I think with the Saudis, I don't just like the whole idea of Saudis and Qatar having to do anything with the Gazas. These are not anybody's friend. It's certainly
Well, you
not
know what?
Israel's friend.
If you don't, Ron, I'll let you respond, but let me just interject for a second. I see Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner was determined not to get involved in the second Trump administration. He and his wife, they were very involved in the first Trump term, made it very clear that they didn't want any involvement in the campaign, and they didn't want any involvement in this. But I see Kushner's involvement here now as a way of protecting Israel. To make sure that Steve Witkoff is at his best behavior when it comes to protecting Israel. And I think, Esther, we were discussing it just the other day. I think yesterday, maybe we were talking about the fact that I think it's in an article that I wrote too. I get mixed up between the articles that I write and what I discuss with you. Sometimes they're the same thing. But the fact that Donald Trump is the chairman of the Board of Peace, and he's totally in charge of Gaza. He has one role that they identified as he's in charge of what happens to Gaza going forward. So, and he, that Jared is a son-in-law, of course, and is an important and very great supporter of Israel. So I think he is there largely to protect Israel from any crazy things that happen in Gaza, like having Turkish troops or Pakistani troops stationed in Gaza.
Well,
Am I saying it the right way,
Larry,
Ron?
yeah,
Yeah.
Larry, let me just remind all of us that you have certain things happening above board and a lot of things happening underboard in the subtext. The whole idea of the Board of Peace is to create an international consensus that Hamas can no longer have a role or control the Gaza Strip. And so by bringing 40 or 50 additional nations to be part of the rehabilitation of the Gaza Strip, I think it's a good idea, keeping in mind that what has been spoken about till now is only an advisory role. Prime Minister Netanyahu has specifically stated that Turkish troops and Qatari troops will not set their foot in the Gaza Strip. Only those personnel or forces that are approved by Israel will have an actual standing on the ground. And none of the other nations, like Turkey, will be involved in the Gaza Strip itself. The second point I want to make, Israel's relationship with Saudi Arabia is also multi-tiered. You have on the most vocal or the most open reports of ongoing discussions concerning the Abraham Accords and all that. But behind the scenes, there have been numerous reports of strategic cooperation with Saudi Arabia, vis-a-vis Iran. Iran threatens Saudi Arabia much more than it does Israel, only for one reason. Israel can respond and attack Iran, where Saudi Arabia cannot protect herself and she cannot go on the offensive against Iran. So they have a
Why?
lot of common interests here. And
Why?
why what?
Why can't they protect the Saudis
Because they don't
if
have
Iran comes after them?
either the technology or the
Uh-huh.
systems, anti-missile systems that Israel has. Israel has the platforms that protect us, and for that reason, during the war 6 months ago with Iran, there wasn't really serious damage here to the country as a whole. You had buildings hit here and there,
Right.
but there was no
Right.
significant
Beersheba.
damage.
Right.
It didn't disrupt anything, not strategic infrastructure, not the army, not the population. The only thing that we didn't have was flights coming in from KLM and Lufthansa. That's what we lost. So I can live
And I
without that.
think Delta also canceled.
Yeah. El Al was flying in and out the whole period. The
El
whole
Al
point
was
is
flying.
they're
Right.
flying. The idea is that we have to keep in mind there are two levels of everything going on here. What's above board for the general media and what's going behind
Uh-huh.
the scenes.
So
I
you're
think
saying
Israel.
the Saudis are not distancing themselves from the Abraham Accords. It's just what we hear that they are. It could be that underboard in another room, they're discussing, just like when Netanyahu and Trump go in a room and discuss, okay, this is what the media has to know, and this is the reality. Okay.
I agree with you 100% from one basic reason. When you look at what's going on in the Western media, okay, and if you look at the demonstrations throughout the Western world, you can't
Right.
tell people the truth today. You have
Right.
to keep things underground, behind the scenes, because the message is being reported by the Western progressive leftist media is entirely different from the reality on the ground. So I can understand that. That's the
Okay.
way it is today.
I feel much better.
Outside of Five Towns Jewish Times, they tell it the way it is.
Okay, I hear it. We lost Larry.
But Esther, don't worry. He always comes home. Don't worry. He finds his way
Believe
home.
me, I am not worried. And he always comes home for good reason. Actually, I see him walking towards a door right now.
Uh-huh.
We lost you. Yes. He's lost. Maybe I'll have him sit in this seat then and continue the conversation, but I'm not concerned. And yes, the funny thing is we discuss this all the time, and then there are articles we read and we don't know what we talked about and what we read, and then we go out with friends and they bring up other discussions. So the truth is I really should put down notes. But what is your thoughts on the phase 2 of Gaza? Are you comfortable with it as
I
an Israeli?
I'll tell you something. I am first of all, like we spoke about just a moment ago, the war ended, and the war ended with a complete defeat of Hamas. The next stage will be
Is it really completely defeated?
they're completely defeated.
Wow.
They don't know it yet, but they are completely
Oh,
defeated. They don't know it yet, but they will learn soon that
okay.
the only uh, future that they have is leaving, and they will leave in the same way that Arafat was forced to leave Beirut in the 80s.
With many, many
Hamas,
billions.
in the coming days, or next week, the Rafah border crossing will open. But despite what
Right.
you will hear, it'll be open only in one direction, out, not in.
Oh,
And you're gonna have Palestinians from the Gaza Strip leaving
leaving.
because all of Gaza is destroyed. You can't live there. It's not habitable at this point, and they will be leaving. Egypt has only one condition: that the Palestinians that leave don't remain in Egypt. They go on, and that's what will happen. They'll move on, finally.
Go on to Turkey, go on to whatever country.
Well, they're talking about, first of all, any country that has a family member that can invite him in, they'll get a visa, including the United
Oh,
States, including the United
that's not
States.
good.
But
I don't
that'll
think so.
happen. That will
I
happen.
don't think that'll happen.
I think it will. And also Europe. Europe has become Muslim today. It's a different it's a continent that it's become Islamic. And so they have communities there, Palestinians. They will invite their family members to join them, and that's what will happen. So I'm pretty
Well,
optimistic
Europe
in
is
that respect.
gone and Canada is gone. That's the truth. But this was a long time happening. They've been infiltrated there for many, many years. Nothing new.
I agree. It's like a domino effect. It started many years ago, and each
I know
nation
how many. I was
fell
in
down by
England about,
like dominoes, and that's what happened. But
right. It's true.
so in general, I think that we're in the middle of the process. We're not at the end yet. And Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke yesterday or the day before, and he said categorically that the Gaza Strip will be demilitarized, and Hamas will not have any role in any future governing of the Gaza Strip. So we have to be a little patient to see how things play out. But I'm pretty optimistic because I also believe that
Great.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, has a strategic understanding of how to get it done, and he's doing it in a very effective way. But it takes
Baruch
time.
Hashem.
You can't
Yep.
undo. You cannot undo. You cannot undo 30 years of Oslo in 5 minutes. It takes time, and that's what's
Right.
happening right now.
You're still not in that field. You're not treating
No,
people
no, I've.
anymore. You have a son that does, right?
Well, I'll tell you something. One of the challenges of mental health is you have to be fully committed. And if you can't be fully committed, it's very difficult to gain trust of
It's a
patients.
funny word, committed.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. And after many, many years in the field, I wanted to enjoy other things, other
Yeah.
experiences that are not related to that. And I'm not able to juggle so many things at one time. So you have to decide either you're in it or you're out of it.
Yeah, I have a niece that works in the psych ward in one of the hospitals. Not easy,
It
especially
takes
during the,
it makes
especially after the war.
you have to invest the whole post-trauma industry, and it is an industry in every sense of the word, which we should keep in mind, has become very, very involved because of the large population.
Especially because of this last war. It
Exactly.
emotionally,
Exactly.
what it did to people was just impossible.
Esther, just one point about what you said before Larry asked me a question. I want to make the distinction. I think this is important that you guys should understand. During the period that I served in the IDF, the treatment protocol spoke about getting the soldier back to the front lines as quickly as possible to help him unchain himself from the trauma and be free of the trauma by returning to the front line and being with his buddies at arms and getting back into things that would allow him to be unshackled. Today, the protocol is very different. Today, they don't send them to the front lines. They send them to the rear lines, to hospitals, to be treated. So it's a whole different way of looking at it today. That's one of the reasons, in my opinion, that you have an explosion in the rate of PTSD among soldiers because of the change in the protocol. They don't treat
You
them at the
thinking?
lines. They treat them in hospitals today. Or
So you think what we used to do, meaning getting back on that bike, made a lot more sense?
exactly, exactly, exactly.
I think what you said makes a lot of sense, Ron. I know that with just family members, my nephew that got stuck in I think it was Kfar Aza because he went as a Hatzalah, ended up being the head of Zaka there. He walked away from his other life, and this is all he does. And this is what makes him feel better. And luckily, his wife is in the mental field too. So you know, you can't walk away. This is what happened. You have to speak to psychiatrists and mental health doctors all the time now. It doesn't disappear.
So, Ron, I know I missed part of the conversation, but part of the talk last week was that Trump is getting ready to, go in and level a real kick in the pants, so to speak, to Iran. But allegedly, Netanyahu said to him that he's not ready yet. They give him a few more days to get ready. What does that mean, that Israel's not ready, and that he needs a few more days to get ready?
Well, first of all, I don't think that's the case, despite the reports that Netanyahu needs a few more days. I think what we have to keep in mind is that the goal of the attack, or the expected attack, will be regime change. It won't be enough to just bomb them. They have to bomb them or attack them in a manner that will enable the Iranian people to overthrow the government. And you have to put actors in place, and you have to put technology in place for the regime to be taken down. That kind of preparation takes time. Now,
But that's
only till
probably
a couple
there.
of
That's
days
probably there
ago, only
already.
till a couple of days ago, President Trump sent a large force to the area, and they arrived only a few days ago. So it takes time to prepare for this kind of action. It doesn't come within a day or two. And I don't think the problem is Israel's prepared or not prepared. I think in general, coordinating all of the forces between the Central Command of the American military forces and the IDF and additional security forces takes time, because it's very complicated. This is a one-time shot. They can't miss. So I think that they're preparing, and they'll have results in the near future, very near future.
All right. So how do they knock out the Iranian government? I don't know too much about military strategy, but from as an observer, as a casual observer, I think they don't have to go to war with Iran. They have to kill about 100 people that are the leadership, have the leadership roles that run the country, and they probably have an opposition in place that's ready to take over. Not dissimilar to what's going on in Venezuela. Yeah.
Well, how did they destroy Hamas? They destroyed all of their leaders. They assassinated all of the leaders. The same thing with Hezbollah in Lebanon. They assassinated Nasrallah and all of his senior leaders. How did they get rid of Syria? They destroyed the
Right.
military headquarters and military leadership. The same thing with the Yemenites. They took down their president and their head of the military. I think the logic forces us to understand that it works. And so, Iran, being a large nation of 90 million people, obviously there's a lot more to do there than, 2 or 3 local attacks. To take down their leadership, political leadership, and their military leadership, it's a big operation, and you need a lot of forces because of the number of people involved here. So I think that's what we can expect to see. That's my
Okay,
my assessment.
Ron, I appreciate you joining us and sharing with us some of your strategic insights as a longtime veteran of life in Israel, not just of military life in Israel. So we hope that we'll have the opportunity to be online and discuss similar issues in the future. Thanks very much for joining us, everyone. Have a good day.